hello, how's everyone doing today? Post this on Twitter and hey guys, how's everyone doing today? Okay, hello, how's everyone doing? I hope everyone's having a great day today. How are you guys? Nice cosplay. Thank you, man. Okay, let's start up a bounty mission. I'm good, Emily. How are you? Hey, Rashawn. Hey, Golden Stripe Mustang. Hey, guys. Bro, if Rockstar can only add one thing to Red Dead Online to revive the game, what would you want it to be? It would be very hard to decide. Because I think the better question to ask would be to add the two things that they would add. But if you were to ask me the one thing that they should add to revive this game, I think it would be player housing versus heists. Because heists are something the players have requested in this game for some time, but the problem is most players have a ton of money already right now. Like, they just have so much money in general. And so if you add heists, it's going to add more missions, more stuff to do, sure, but there's nothing to really spend the money on. Nothing really. I would say that player housing. And when I say player housing, I mean, like, you know, houses in Saint Denis, like maybe houses in Blackwater that you can buy. Like maybe an apartment in Saint Denis, a house in Blackwater, you know, stuff like that, and you could actually customize it. Like, you could customize the layout of the house, buy furniture, stuff like that. Maybe add some activities in the house, you know, things like that. Because if people could actually spend money in a house, I think they would actually, they would play this game. They definitely would. I mean, look at this map. This map is enormous, and it hasn't been used to its full potential, so there's so many new buildings and so much stuff they can buy. And if they want to get around the Red Dead Redemption lore, they could just do what GTA Online did, and they could basically just say, oh, you know, this is going in the future now, and, you know, Red Dead Online is like 5 years, you know, in the future now. They could do something like that. So that's how they could justify, like, you know, adding new stuff to the world. When is the final part of Manhunt? That'll be tomorrow. I'm assuming tomorrow will be the final part. I think it's the final part. People have told me that I'm on the final part now. Ulfric's Stormcloak in Skyrim Tamriel is considered a Thalmor asset puppet to the Aldmeri Dominion. I don't think they intended on him winning quickly. Here's the thing is, Ulfric is kind of, like, if I was to compare anybody historically to Ulfric's Stormcloak, I don't know if, like, necessarily in personality, but I would say a good historical example would probably be Vladimir Lenin, because what happened was it's the Aldmeri Dominion wanted, you know, Ulfric Stormcloak to basically cause a rebellion in Skyrim. They didn't expect him to win. It's the exact same thing with the Germans in World War I, how they sent, like, Lenin into Russia, and they basically wanted him to cause a revolution, but they never expected Lenin to actually win and take over Russia. They never expected that. They thought that Lenin was just going to basically be a nuisance for the Tsar, and basically they were going to have to divert troops from the Eastern Front to fight Lenin's forces. But the Germans never intended for him to win. Thank you, Producer Hub, and thank you, Lenin, for the super chat. Yeah, he probably was some deranged serial killer soldierist. Probably that Pigsy guy. Honestly, I've said before that, I've said before, though, Blade of Stars, that the problem in Skyrim is that there are really good reasons for both factions in the Skyrim Civil War, but I would say, I mean, like, the Empire is basically, like, you know, occupying Skyrim and trying to destroy, like, you know, the Nords' religion. But at the same time is the Nords, even though they want independence, they basically treat anybody who's not a Nord like absolute garbage. So I would say it's a more complicated conflict. Even though it's a fictional one, it's a lot more complicated. Are the IAA and the FIB basically the same in terms of corruption? Kind of, I guess. There's really no difference between them. They're really the, you know, the FIB is the FBI in the GTA world, and the IAA is the CIA in the GTA world. I don't know what's stupider, the Remedy Take-Two lawsuit, the fact that a kid got actually suspended because he said Jesus, or 11 hours for 11 seconds. Are you talking about the 11 hours for 11 seconds? Are you talking about when my Star Wars video got copyright claimed for 11 seconds that was 11 hours long? I would say that the, well, even though the Thalmor might allow them into the Aldmeri Dominion, they still look down on them. So, I mean, if you look at the Wood Elf that's inside the Thalmor embassy that works for them, they basically treat him like crap. So, what I will say is, the best solution to the Skyrim Civil War, I think, is a solution that keeps everyone happy. I think that Skyrim should be an independent country, it shouldn't be part of the Empire. But on the other hand, Skyrim should have a military alliance with the Empire, and I think Skyrim, if it was more independent, it would probably be, people would probably generally be more happy, but at the same time have an alliance with the Empire. And the second thing is, you know, guarantee that every single, you know, person in Skyrim is treated equally under the law, that Nords aren't just dominant over everything. I think that would probably be the best solution for everyone. Wait, a kid got suspended for saying Jesus? Wait, what? You gotta explain this to me. What happened exactly? Thank you, Lendon, for the super chat, and thank you, Blinded Eagle. What other Sopranos characters do you hate? The Sopranos characters that I hate Jackie Jr., Ralph, Richie, and there's a lot of scumbags on that show. And most of the Sopranos, I don't like them either, too. I mean, they're interesting characters to follow, but, you know, they're awful people. You're my backup if I don't make it, have a nice life. You're my backup if I don't make it, have a nice life. Yeah, it was just a loop. It was a loop on the sound glitch there. Thank you, Mr. Waifu. Hey, GB, what's up, man? I don't know exactly what happened, but he said Jesus Christ, and he got in trouble. Like, what? Like, that's, you know, maybe getting yelled at by a teacher, that's probably what happened, because, it's just, if kids blurt things out, you know, oftentimes in class, they will get yelled at by a teacher, but getting suspended for saying something like that, that is, just too much. There's a way to truce if you have mods that restore cut content, although I think a second Civil War is going to happen regardless with the Dominion. You know what I'm really curious about? What I'm really curious about is with Elder Scrolls 6, because Elder Scrolls 6 is supposed to take place in High Rock, the Breton homeland. So I'm really curious, how exactly are they going to end the Skyrim Civil War in Elder Scrolls 6? Because they're going to have to give an answer somehow, because Skyrim borders High Rock. So they're going to have to give some kind of explanation exactly on how that war ended. And whatever explanation they do, they're gonna piss off half the audience, because, like, literally what I've noticed is, like, half of the players support the Empire and half of the players support the Stormcloaks. There's really not a huge majority supporting either side. And so, you know, they made a pretty good story when, like, half the player base, you know, supports both sides. Bonus levels? What's the bonus levels in Manhunt 1? Why don't you like Cyberpunk? Has a lot of lore. Well, works. I've just never been much into futuristic games, but I'm willing to give the game a try one day. I'm willing to play it one day. It could be in Hammerfall 2. Okay, Blind Eagle, I'll take a look at your message later. How do you upgrade your horse? Well, you upgrade your horse's gear. You just take it to the stable. That's it. And as you level up your horse, I mean, you just use your horse and your horse will level up and, you unlock more sprint over time. I feel like the Carcer City PD are the most terrifying corrupt cops out of any game I've played. The fact that they're on a snuff payroll says it all, honestly. Thank you, Mr. Waifu, for the super chat. I would say that the worst corrupt cops aren't even the Carcer City PD. I would put the Carcer City PD and, like, in terms of corrupt cops in video games, I would put the Carcer City PD as one of the most corrupt cops I've seen in games. But I would say the most corrupt police unit I've ever seen in a video game, it's not even Crash from San Andreas. I would say that it is Ufe in Max Payne 3. Remember Ufe? The Brazilian, like, tactical cops? Like, those guys, I think those guys are even worse than the Carcer City PD. That's like, it's a brutal, like, a tactical police that just invades the favelas and just kidnaps people and just, sells them for human organs. It's really disturbing in Max Payne 3. I had this idea where my, original character, Jack Honda's S2000 would be dubbed the Punisher because of its bulletproof body, reinforced chassis, and XM556 microgun. Honda S2000. Well, I don't know much about cars though, DL Gaming. But I'm sure you're doing a good job with it. Where are you gonna publish this story when you're finished with your story? You're gonna publish it online? And hey Pro, I'm gonna thank Starkwater for my second chance. You're my backup if I don't make it. Have a nice life. Well, thank you, Bunny, for the sponsoring my channel for 2 years. Thanks, man. Yeah, they both are terrible, Mr. Waifu. Thank you for the super chat. Will I ever try VR games? I have tried VR games. I never recorded it. I might play Sniper Elite VR because the Sniper Elite game is on VR. There's one game, but the thing is though is I played the Ace Combat game on VR and I got sick. Like I actually got dizzy when I played it. I think Carcer City is Detroit. That's what I think. It's probably Detroit. Okay. Oh, DeviantArt. Oh, okay. Well, thank you, DL Gaming. Thank you for the super chat. Funny enough, there is a big story-based quest mod in Skyrim where that second war does happen with the Dominion with some military tactics too in it. Thank you, Lendon, for the super chat. I think that the next Elder Scrolls game is probably going to have some kind of war with the Aldmeri Dominion. I think that they pretty much were hinting at it with Skyrim. Would I really recommend the DualSense Edge for PS owners? Here, you see this? Look at that. See that? That is the DualSense Edge. That's what I've been using. The controller, the grips on it peel. So the grips on the DualSense Edge have actually been peeling. And they started peeling after like half a year. So it's, I haven't really had any issues with the controller besides the peeling on the grips. That's really the only annoying thing on it. Did you see how the FBI on... Thank you, Mario, for sponsoring my channel for a year and a half. Did you see how the FBI honored Martin Luther King Jr. Day on Twitter, despite the fact that they played a role in his assassination? No, what did they do on Twitter? Starkweather was mentioned in Bully by pedestrians. Oh, he is? I didn't know that. Favorite Spec Ops unit in a video game? The Ghost in Ghost Recon Wildlands, Lieutenant Touchdown. Be ready to rage at Border Patrol and key personnel. Why? Is it something really bad? You know, the worst mission that I did in Manhunt so far is Wrong Side of the Tracks. It's the worst mission that's been in the game. It's like, there's like barely any places to hide. It's when you're trying to escape from the corrupt cops, the last part I uploaded. There's like barely any place to hide. And it's like barely any shadows, and there's all the cops have guns. It's like this, it's the, and they have MAC-10s. It's the, that's the worst mission I did so far. Hi, Professional. I just finished Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm glad Micah got what he deserved. Thank you, thank you, Harvey. Unfortunately, I had that story ruined for me the first time that I was playing it, because I was doing a live stream playing through the game, and I had people that actually super chatted me that Micah betrays the group. So, like, they would actually just super chat that out of nowhere and just put, you know, big thing, Micah, like, it was a $2 super chat. It was like, Micah betrays Arthur. I don't even know why some people did stuff like that, but... There's a community note on it. Okay, Mr. Waifu, I'll take a look at it. I mean, Mr. Tricky Mario, I'll take a look at it later. I'm warning you about both Cerberus missions. Their M16s will be harbingers of death, like the SMG SWAT. Also, Wrong Side of the Tracks is a cursed name. Yep, it is. Ooh. Hey man, love your content. Would I ever play the Fable games on your channel? Sometimes some of my favorite games growing up. I know those games are really old. There's a bunch of them. But I could maybe look into playing them. If it's anything like, you know, the Elder Scrolls games, I'll look into playing them. I do like RPGs like that. Thank you, Hussey's Huddle. And thank you, Lendon. The Stormcloak Rebel army is significant, while the Aldmeri Dominion is numerous, plentiful. But remember, Hammerfall and the Roman remnants. Well, the thing is, though, Hammerfall was part of the Empire, correct me if I'm wrong, when they fought the Aldmeri Dominion. And what happened was, when the Empire surrendered to the Aldmeri Dominion, Hammerfall refused to surrender. And so what the Empire did was they basically kicked them out of the Empire. They threw them out. And they said that they're not part of our Empire anymore. And so Hammerfall basically became an independent country. And then the Aldmeri Dominion invaded. And then Hammerfall basically fought them to, like, a standstill. They didn't really defeat them, but they fought the Aldmeris until they couldn't fight anymore. And then they signed a separate peace treaty where they actually regained their independence. So if the Empire had kept fighting like that, the Aldmeri Dominion wouldn't have had the resources to keep going, too. Oh, there's gun executions in Manhunt, too? Huh. I have recently replayed Halo 2, and I'm replaying Halo Combat Evolved again. Please play the Halo games as much as you really don't like sci-fi. I could give them a try one day. The cosplay would probably be hard to do for that, Mr. Waifu. I do have Halo 3 on the Xbox 360. And thank you, General's Alert. What if Tony Soprano and Vito Corleone met? Well, they both lived in different time periods, but let's just say they did live in the same time period. Here's what I would say is that, Vito would I think that Vito Corleone would probably despise Tony Soprano. I think he would. Because Vito Corleone, he's a mafia boss, but the thing is, though, is Vito doesn't do, like, as terrible, scummy things like Tony does. He's not involved with drugs. Vito refuses to cheat on his wife. He's never done that. He's never cheated on his wife. He absolutely despises stuff like that. He's very close to his entire family, where Tony actually really hates his son. Tony is just... I would say that both Vito and Tony are a bit manipulative, but Tony's manipulation, I would say, is just... much more nefarious than Vito's manipulation. That's just what I would put it as. So I think that Tony Soprano and I think Vito Corleone will despise Tony Soprano too. I think he would. Hey Pro, love the content. I've been grinding hangar cargo missions in GT Online. Hard to do solo, but I made a lot of money from it though. It's the best to get it when it's double or triple money. And here's the thing, Golden, is if you get like a full hangar warehouse, like a full just hangar, don't sell it. Just hold it, because eventually it's gonna be double money or triple money. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't think there's any kind of hangar rates. I don't think hangar rates exist. So I don't think the hangar can ever get rated.
Hey Pro, do you know when we've had a good weekend in GTA, like for double money? Like when's the last time we've had a good weekend?
Honestly, I haven't been putting out my weekly money guides for GTA Online because the last few events have been crap, honestly. They just haven't been good.
Yeah, I think we're due for a good double money week.
Key Personnel also has a reinforcement system with cameras, 40 plus Cerberus spawns in teams of 2 to 3. 40 plus is a lot, but not infinite. Also, their loadouts. Well, I guess we're gonna have to see how hard the final missions are then, London. I hope I don't rage on it. I hope it's not another Fight Night Champion situation. I heard about that, Blinded Eagle, that they are actually getting rid of the Rockstar editor on PS4. I don't know why they would do that. Yeah, that's just dumb. Also, Cottonmouth is supposed to be New Orleans. Oh, okay. That's the location of Manhunt 2, right, Mr. Waifu? My favorite era in history would probably be the French Revolution. The scummiest company in the world? Oh, that would be a very hard question to answer. It'd be either I don't know, honestly, at the top of my head. I'd have to think about that. Yeah, I think I will give it a try, Patrick, not Packy. Thank you for sponsoring my channel for nearly 3 years now, man. Does anyone here need to sell anything, like a moonshine or a trader? Does anybody here need to sell anything?
I could check. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've been on this game.
Hey, Pro, I'm sorry how I acted last week. I was really scared and frightened about what happened. It's a really long story not mentioning on stream. It's okay, Mark. Thank you for the super chat. Thanks, don't worry about it. Loving all your playthroughs, especially since most of them are games I've recently purchased or have had installed for a long time, but haven't touched. Currently setting up my PSN account. Would love to run a session. Thank you, Anton Buchanan, if I'm reading your name correctly. Oh, what? Oh, great, I just crashed. Okay, yeah, and you can join me when you want, Anton, on Red Dead or on GTA. Thank you for the super chat, man. Just let me know what your PSN is. Okay. I feel like Manhunt 2 actually takes place in the HD universe, since some of the groups are very different from the ones in Manhunt 1 and graphics. I think Manhunt 2 is still very much in the 3D universe. I think it is. Because the HD universe started with GTA 4. Thank you, London, for the super chat. But the thing is, though, is that I know that Manhunt 2 is even more violent than Manhunt 1, so I'm curious whether I'm going to get in trouble for playing Manhunt 2 on the channel. Because those games don't really scare me. I can play them, no problem. but it's just, I'm just scared I might get in trouble from YouTube for playing it. One of the enemy dialogue mentions San Andreas. Oh, okay. Chinatown Wars is in the HD universe, yes. Manhunt 2 is the last game in the 3D universe, yes. Do you think Rockstar should add cars and trucks from the 1900s and 1910s into Red Dead Redemption 2? If they push it a little bit into the future, like, you know, they say, like, you know, it's been, because Red Dead Online came out, like, 5 years ago, if they push it, like, you know, in the future, it's like 1904 now, maybe they could add, like, an early car or something like that, but I can't picture them doing it, honestly. I don't think they'll do it. Okay, good work, guys. Thank you, LCPD.
You crazy? Jesus! Jesus! Yellow belly bastard!
Professional, I once had one of your fakers try to scam me when I commented one time. I know it's a bot, but I basically roasted them to hell and back in the YouTube comment section, so worth it. Thank you, Blade of Stars. But, I try to block those accounts as quickly as I can, but sometimes they just pop, so many of them just pop up. But for people that don't know what he's talking about, there is basically, like, these scammers on YouTube that will impersonate YouTubers. It's happened to me, it's happened to other YouTubers. I'm sure you've seen it before. It might happen where on one of my videos, if you comment on one of my videos, there might be, like, a bot account that replies to you, and it might say, like, the professional, but it's not me. It is not me. You can click on the account, and you can see there is no subscribers. It's a brand new account, but they basically put my avatar, they pretend to be me, and then they basically say, oh, you want a giveaway, you know, contact me, you know, on Telegram to, you know, claim your giveaway prize. It's all a lie. Basically the scam is they're gonna want you to pay $200 for shipping, which they're gonna tell you you're gonna win a free MacBook and a free iPhone and all this other stuff. The scam is the shipping. They're charging you $200 for the shipping. They're just gonna steal it from you.
I'm done here.
Will I be joining the scam baiter community? What do you mean by scam baiter community? And thank you, Anton, for sponsoring my channel also. Higgsy is the hardest boss in Manhunt. Oh, okay. Have I played Midnight Club? Yes, I've played Midnight Club 1, 2, 3, and LA. But I never beat LA. I did beat Midnight Club 3, though. Thank you, Mustang, for the super chat. What is the scam baiting community? What is that exactly? Is that like a group of those people that just annoy scammers?
Hey, bro, I got a moonshine cell mission.
Okay,
after this.
We'll help you right after this.
Cool.
Folks like Kit Boga, Scam Baiter, Scammer Payback, damn good YouTube channels that focus on targeting scammers. Okay. Do they have, like, a specific community that they hang out in, or something like that? You know, the thing is, though, is I'll tell you guys something, is I am extremely disappointed in the Nigerian Cybercrimes Division. Because, Anton, I'll tell you this, is I have posted a few videos where I've actually annoyed scammers, and I didn't just annoy them, but I actually tracked them. And so I actually found out what city they were in, what country they were in. There's videos on my channel. Look up the playlist called Annoying Scammers, or I think it's Trolling Scammers. I think that's what it's called. So I have a few videos where I trolled scammers and I tracked their locations. And what I will say about it is that I have basically submitted multiple reports to the police in Nigeria, to their cybercrimes division, where I have basically told them the scammer's city, you know, that they're in their country. I have given them the scammer's website, scammer's phone number, scammer's Facebook, scammer's email address, and the Nigerian Cybercrimes Division did not do anything. Nothing. They didn't even care. Nothing. Zero. And I'll tell you something. I called them a few times. I called them, the first time that I called them, like, there was 2 cybercrimes divisions. One of them, I could never even reach them. They never answered the phone. The second one, I did call them, and the first time that I talked to them, this was like, you know, back in, you know, November, the cop that I actually talked to was actually a nice guy, and, but he did annoy me with one thing. There is an email on the website. So on the Nigerian Cybercrimes website, there's an email where you're supposed to report the scammers and report all the information of the scammers. And I had submitted all the information to that email. I never got a response. And I called the Nigerian Cybercrimes Division, and I asked them, like, you know, what's going on? Did you guys get the email? And the guy basically tells me, you know, no, we haven't gotten the email. And I say, like, you know, how? And he's like, oh, we don't use the email on the website anymore. I'm like, what? You don't use the email on the website anymore? He's like, yeah, we still have to update it. We still have to change it. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, you know, how is that on your website? You're a police organization, and you're telling me that you use a different, like, you know, email than on the website, that you still have to change it. And I called them back in November, and when I go on that website, they still have the wrong email on their website. It's been like, you know 3 months later at this point. And he gave me another email. I submitted it to that email. I called back a month later. A month later, I called back. And what happened was, when I called back a month later, the cop actually told me, and I talked to a different Nigerian cop at that point. And I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, he told me that I called him, I think it was like December 22nd or 23rd. And he told me that nobody is here. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, everyone's on holiday. And I'm like, can you open emails? And he's like, I can't open emails. You know, there's somebody else who's in charge of that. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, like, at this point. It's like, you know, how can everybody be on holiday? Everybody be on break? Like, I know the holidays are coming up, but the thing about this is, what's the point of having a guy pick up the phone at the police station if the guy on the phone can't even do anything? If he can't even, like, open up their email system or do anything, like, about that? It's like, I know they can't fully staff a police station, I get that. You know, people work at different times. But here's the thing about this, is you should have somebody on the phone at all times, 7 days a week, 24 hours, who, even if the cop who is handling the police report, even if he is not there, the cop that is on duty should be able to pull up all the police reports from his computer, go through them, and be like, okay, sir, I'm looking at this police report, this is what this officer wrote down in the notes, I will make sure he gets back to you, and just fill them in on that. But telling me that, like, everybody is just on holiday, and guess what? I called them 2 weeks ago again. You know, right after the new year, because I waited until after the new year just so they didn't give me that excuse again, that it's after the new year. And I recorded all these calls, by the way, so all these calls, I recorded them. I'm still gonna put them in, like, a video when I talk to these cops. But when I called them again, do you know what this time they told me? They told me that, oh, you know, we didn't get the email, you know, send it again. And at that point, I was starting to get frustrated, and I said to him, I'm gonna send it to you again, right now. And I said, I'm gonna give you guys a week, and if you don't call me within a week, I'm calling you guys again. And the cop on the phone is like, no, sir, it will not take a week, we will get back to you, I gave them my phone number, I gave them my email address. You know how long it's been? It's been 2 weeks. 2 weeks! And they still have not contacted me, even though they told me that it would be less than a week. And so I'm gonna call them one more time, but this last time I'm gonna call them, might even call them tonight or tomorrow. But when I do call them, this is gonna be the final time I ever called the Nigerian Cybercrimes Division. I'm never gonna call them back again. But when I call them this next time, I'm basically gonna just tell them that, okay, you guys don't know what the hell you're doing. It's like, literally, you guys don't care. You guys don't care. I've submitted multiple reports to you guys, and I've reported multiple scammers to them. Multiple scammers. Given them the scammer's IP address. I've given them a scammer's city, scammer's website, phone number. Nothing. And, like, they should be able to at least check the domain name of the website and see, like, you know, what company in Nigeria is, like, you know, operating these websites. And, like, go and start, like, going to these call centers in Nigeria and start, like, raiding them. But, like, these police are just not, last time, no more scam baiting videos. No. I'll do more videos where I piss off scammers. I'll definitely do that in the future. But I'm never gonna call back the Nigerian Cybercrimes Division, and I'm never gonna submit police reports to them ever again, because they don't do anything, they don't care. So I'll still annoy scammers, I'll still do that, and I'll still do videos on that, but I'm never gonna, you know, talk to the Nigerian Cybercrimes Division, because I've just had such a bad experience. And what I will say about it is, look, you know, I get it, that there are good cops in Nigeria. I don't deny that. I know there's good, honest cops that want to do the right thing. But, like, this police department, I just had such terrible experiences with just pretty much everybody involved that I don't know what on earth they're doing. Like, I don't know what's going on there. And, like, most people, when I tell most of my viewers about this, when I tell most of you guys about this, about how the Nigerian, you know, police don't do anything, most of you guys, when I read your comments, you guys are mostly saying that it's corruption, that the police are in on it with the scammers. But what I'll say about that is, that could be part of it, where there is corruption, but I don't think that's the main reason. The main reason I think the police in Nigeria, like, the reason I think they don't do anything about the scammers, is I think that it's just mostly incompetence. That's what I think it is mostly. It's just laziness, and I think it's incompetence, because the way they look at it is like, you know, I pick up the phone, even though I haven't said that I'm an American, you know, they can just hear my accent, they know I'm an American, and basically what the cops in Nigeria are thinking, they're thinking like, oh, you know, these scammers, they're targeting Americans, they're not targeting Nigerians, and so it's not our problem. We don't have to deal with this. It's not a big deal. Like, Americans are rich people, you know, they can take a hit, it's fine. You know, we don't have to deal with this crap. That's basically what the attitude is like, they think that, like, people in the West have, like, a lot of money, and they think that, oh, it's not worth investigating, we don't have to do anything about it, and that's pretty much what it is. It's incompetence. It's that it's not necessarily that they're corruption, it's just more that they just don't care. That's just what it pretty much is. That is literally the main reason for that. Because, and the thing is, this is not just in, this problem doesn't just happen in Nigeria. If you watch a lot of those, like, YouTube videos of, like, those, you know, those scammer payback, and you watch Trilogy Media, and those guys, and when they, like, track scammers to India, and with India, it's the exact same thing. They track the scammers, they report the scammers to the Indian police, and the Indian police don't do anything a lot of times. It's the exact same thing. It's like the Indian police and the Nigerian police, they basically just look at these cases and they basically like, oh, these scammers aren't scamming Indians, they're not scamming Nigerians, and so we don't care. That's pretty much what it is. And that's precisely why these scams have basically just gotten out of control. It's just gotten ridiculous. Because I'll tell you something is America would have just as many call centers as, like, India and Nigeria. America would have just as many of these, you know, these romance scammers and these, like, IRS scammers and these gift card scammers and all this other stuff as India and Nigeria if our police did not do anything. Imagine if the police in America, if they didn't do anything. If you could call people in, like, other countries in America and you could scam them and there would be no consequences whatsoever, American call centers would be popping up all over the place. You know, just scamming people. So that's the reason is, in America, if you scam people in other countries, the police are still going to arrest you. Even if you're scamming people in a completely different country. The police in America are still going to arrest you. And that's really the main problem, is why these police departments, they just don't care. They think, oh, you know, these scammers aren't targeting, you know, our people, and so it's not that big of a deal. But what I will say about that is, as a police officer, you literally, you take an oath to uphold the law, and every single a victim of a crime is a victim anywhere. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the victim of a crime is a victim. If it doesn't matter if the victim is in Nigeria. It doesn't matter if the victim is in America. It doesn't matter if the victim is wherever. If the person is a victim and there is a criminal, the criminal, whoever that criminal is, the police have an obligation to bring that person to justice. So if there's, like, somebody in Nigeria that's, like, scamming Americans, like doing some romance scam, you know, something like that, the police in Nigeria have an obligation to arrest that person and stop that person and get the person their money back, who that person scammed. It doesn't matter if the victim is not in Nigeria, and that personally pisses me off that they basically think that just because the victims are not in their country that doesn't matter. That's just That's just what I'll say about that. But like, just look at those videos on YouTube where like YouTubers will report the scammers to like the Indian police, the Nigerian police. They don't do anything. They just don't. They don't care. So I know there's some good cops in those countries, but there's massive amounts of problems in these police departments. These police departments in like Nigeria and India, they need serious reform. There needs to be some serious reform. And also, what I will say on it is it's also partially our fault, America's fault. America does have a fault in this as well, because our government is stupid. Our government needs to pressure countries like Nigeria and countries like India. I'm not saying sanctions, nothing like that. What I'm saying is our government just basically needs to talk to the Nigerian government and the Indian government and basically say, listen, you got these scam centers in your country. They're scamming people in our country. You guys got to do something about that. If the U.S. government put pressure on these countries, then they would actually do something about it too. But the U.S. government isn't putting pressure, so I would say the U.S. government is also at fault of this. Is that they need to do something more to also help deal with this issue, because this has gotten out of control too. Let me look at I missed a bunch of comments. Let me see here. Hey Pro, I have a quiz on all European countries in AP Human Geography. Even the hard ones like Estonia, Montenegro, Liechtenstein, Lithuania. Wish me luck. Okay, I wish you luck. Ryan, if you ever if you have any historical questions, especially on geography, you can also ask me too. I know geography, especially in European maps, pretty well. How about the face when he saw the what? Wait, what, Trash Man? Wait, what? I'm confused. Thank you for the super chat. Today's my birthday. Will I get a shout out? Well, hello, Will. Hello, Will Vandam. Thank you for the super chat. Wish Will a happy birthday, everyone, guys. Check out his channel. I actually can't believe that Dejan Milicevic was the Warriors' assistant coach, died of a heart attack in front of the team, and people are like, oh my god. Alright. Well, I don't know who that was, Blinded Eagle, but nobody should be making fun of anybody's death. Thank you for the super chat. No, I haven't checked out Fargo Season 5.
I can't invite the other two people who are...
Oh, they're probably in posses. Guys, you gotta leave your open posses if you want to join SMs. And can you fast travel us inside the Moonshine Shack, please, dude?
Yeah, I will.
But yeah, I'll tell you guys something. There was a about 13 years ago, there was this scam that was going on in Greenpoint in Brooklyn, New York, and the thing about this scam is this scam I think recently started happening again, but it's been a very long time since it happened because the police did actually clean it up and actually dealt with it. Basically what the scam was is Greenpoint, Brooklyn, New York is largely a Polish neighborhood. And so what these scammers were doing, these were actually Polish scammers that were doing this, and they actually had their own little call center in Greenpoint. What these Polish scammers were doing is they were calling up elderly Polish people. So they would just look up elderly Polish people in like the phone book, and they would talk to them in Polish. And basically what they would say to them is they would say to them that, we're from the police, and we have a translator, and your, grandson or granddaughter is in jail, and you have to go and buy gift cards to, like, get them out of jail. And this is the exact same scam that some of the scammers in India have done. The exact same. It's called the grandparent scam. So it's the exact same scam. But what I would say about it is the difference. The difference here is that the police in New York tracked down these Polish scammers. They raided their building, and they arrested all of them. And I think that they also got deported, because I think they were also illegally in the U.S., so they literally stopped it. And then I think it was like a year or two ago, it was like my mom had gotten one of those scam calls where they was like saying that like your grandson is in jail, and we're from the police. It was like a Polish guy that like called my mom, and my mom basically said, I don't have grandchildren, and he just hung up. So that was but if the scam has not been popped up in some time, did pop up recently, but that scam basically, most of it got shut down because the NYPD dealt with it. So what I'll say about it is that if the police put their time and effort, they can't close down every call center, obviously, but they can stop a lot of them. Because it's just, you ever watch those YouTube videos where, like, those call centers get raided, and then what ends up happening is the scammers are just back out on the streets after a few weeks, and they're doing it again. Like, they don't care. And so, I'm wondering to myself, it's like, what are the police doing a lot of times when, like, you know, situations like that happen? Can you try to ride on the side of the wagon? I can. Let me see here. What do you think of the journalist Robin from Manhunt? I mean, she doesn't really have that much character to her, but a bit stupid, I would say, too. That she's just getting involved in that dangerous situation without carrying a gun or coming with backup. But yeah, what I will ultimately say about this is, last thing I'll say about these scams is like, don't blame people in India and Nigeria for these scams. If you want to blame anybody for these scams, or I would blame, like, you know, the police in those countries or the governments for, like, not cracking down on them, for, like, not stopping them, because if, like I said, if the police in America didn't do anything, when, if Americans, like, scam people in other countries, America would have just as many call centers as, like, India or Nigeria. It's like, criminals see that. When the police don't do anything, criminals take advantage of that. It's like the same thing in California. When California passed that law where I think it was, like, $950, like, you steal a stuff. If you steal, like, less than $950, it's not a felony. And so after California passed that, like, basically theft just skyrocketed. People started stealing like crazy because they knew they weren't going to get really punished for it. And so criminals take advantage of that. They know literally when the law is weak, and you know, that's what I say is that if the best thing that, like, you know, countries like India and Nigeria can do is, like, start cracking down on these scammers, because they start putting hefty, you know, punishments for this, you know, these scams are gonna disappear really quickly. I'm a store manager for Walgreens, and I've had a few instances where an elderly came in trying to buy a $500 gift card for no reason whatsoever. It's very sad to see here. I get you, Scripted Network. When I worked in retail, I saw the same thing. I saw customers come in, and I would have, like, old people that, like, came in and they would buy gift cards, and I would, like, you know, I would ask them, like, you know, what is this gift card for? And, like, I had an old guy one time tell me that I owe taxes to the IRS, and I'm like, the IRS is not gonna want you to, like, you know, buy a gift card and, like, you know, give them money like that. That stuff is not going to happen. So, I have saved a few old people from those scams. But one time what happened is, I remember when I was in retail once, and I kind of felt bad for this guy. There was this one customer, he got scammed. I kind of did feel bad for him, but at the same time, it was kind of his fault, because we tried to warn him. Basically, what happened is there was this old guy who came in and started basically, you know, was buying like a bunch of gift cards. He was really stressed out, you know, he was not in a good mood, and I was not the one ringing him up. It was actually my coworker ringing him up. And when she was ringing him up, she said, you know, why are you buying all these gift cards? And he said, you know, it's none of your business. It's like, you know, why do you want to know? And she's like, because there's a lot of scams out there. And he says that, like, I don't have time for this. Like, you know, my granddaughter or my grandson, I think it was, like, one of his grandkids he was saying, was in jail. And he had to get them out. And my coworker started telling him, sir, you know, your grandchild is not in jail. The police don't need your gift cards and stuff like that. And he just keeps saying, mind your own business, mind your own business. I'm doing this for myself. It's my money. You know, you shouldn't care. It's my money. And he just bought all the gift cards. So he just bought it. My coworker rang him up. You know, maybe she made a mistake ringing him up. She should have just walked away and said, I'm not ringing you up. But she rang him up. You know, she kept pushing it. And then the guy comes back like an hour and a half later, and he says, you know, is there any way I can get a return on those gift cards? And we told him, nope, you can't get a return of the gift cards because, once the gift cards are activated, it says, no returns. So the scammer took the money. There's no way for us to get it back. And, he just walked out, like, defeated. He didn't argue or anything like that. He just walked out defeated. But, like, we tried to stop him. Like, he lost $1,500. That's how much he bought 3 $500 gift cards. And, we tried to warn him. We tried to tell him that your grandson, granddaughter is not in jail. It's not happening. He didn't want to listen. He was just arguing, getting all pissed, saying it's my money, you shouldn't care about it. And he suffered the consequences, got scammed. So that's, I wish he would have listened to us. But like I said, I felt bad for the guy, but we tried to warn him. We tried to tell you, that, you're getting scammed. But nope, didn't want to listen, and that happened. Oh, and wait, 2K is making drumroll a tennis game. My god, we just want NFL 2K back. We don't want Topspin 2K. And this is oh, well, this is coming from a Serb. Oh, well, thank you, Blinded Eagle. But what I'll tell you, Blinded Eagle, is is that if they make a tennis game, what they should do with a tennis game is they should make the story like Fight Night Champion, where there's like a corrupt tennis promoter. Like, imagine that, and you get framed and go to prison, and then you have to verse the inmates in like in tennis too, and you come back and like you build your career up, make it like Fight Night Champion, but make it like a tennis storyline. Have I captured Alfredo Montez? Montez is the guy from Single Player, right? Not single player, online. He's the online story, right? The online story, like the main online story missions. The sheriff with the eye patch, right? That's the guy who gives you the mission, right? With him.
What's your problem?
How do you do? You fixing to irritate me? What's your goddamn problem?
Yeah, I've done those missions a long time ago, Red Harlow.
Thanks for the help.
No problem. Please don't arrest me, I have Xbox gift cards. Favorite season of Fargo? I haven't seen Fargo season 4 and 5 yet. But I would say my favorite season of Fargo is probably the first one. Thank you, Mr. Nowhere. I think that Lord Malvo is the ultimate Fargo antagonist. I don't think that there's a better antagonist than him in the Fargo series. I'm doing good, Sam. How are you, man? Thank you for the super chat. Imagine Cluckenbell turns to some Saints Row stuff. Wait, Cluckenbell turns to... Cluckenbell turns to some Saints Row stuff. Okay, I was just misreading that for a moment. What are you talking about? Like, they go politically correct with it? Okay. Here. If I have to save one person, would it be Troy or Julius? Troy, easily.
Hey, bro, remember to invite people to your pod.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Start anything.
Okay.
Why are you doing this?
Why is incarceration increasing despite crime rates going down overall? Well, it depends on what crimes. Violent crime has been dropping over, years, but other crimes like drug crimes have actually increased. Well, it depends on the region. Some parts of America, drug crime has increased, but also what I would say about it is that the laws in a region affect crime rate also, because it depends on what the law is. Because what I will say is the biggest problem that people have when they're creating laws to combat crime is that all people think about is rehabilitation a lot of times. And I agree with here's my position on rehabilitation for criminals. I agree with rehabilitation for people who deserve it. Not everyone deserves rehabilitation. So I believe in rehabilitation for people who deserve it. And when I say people who deserve it, I'm talking about people who commit more minor crimes. Like, you know, maybe they make a stupid mistake in their life. Maybe they're like part of a gang when they're like younger. They fall in with a bad crowd, it happens. And, you know, they do some bad things, they go to prison, they serve their time, you know, they're changed, they want to, you know, be a different person, they want to live a productive life, they don't want to commit crimes. Somebody like that deserves a second chance. But somebody who's like a murderer should never be rehabilitated, should never deserve a second chance. I think the same thing for a rapist. I don't think a rapist, you know, deserves a second chance also. I think, you know, people like that, you know, just keep them in prison. But, like, you know, people who are, like, you know, more minor offenses, maybe they were part of a gang, maybe, you know, they dealt in some drugs when they were younger, you know, they fell in with a bad crowd, but they're changed. I do think they deserve a second chance, but I think some of the other people don't. But you have to have a combination of rehabilitation for some people, but you also have to have punishments. Because what I constantly hear from people constantly say that stricter laws do not deter criminals. But what these people don't tell you is that weak laws also increase crime. Because if you look at California, and I'm not trying to insult anybody from California, but if you look at California, and somebody from California might know better about this than me, there is a law in California where it's like if you steal like less than $950 for stuff, it is not counted as a felony. Instead, it's like a ticket or it's a misdemeanor. And ever since that law got put into place, theft has skyrocketed. There's like gangs of shoplifters, organized shoplifters, where they run into like a store in California. They'll like take everything off the shelf and just run out in a few minutes. Like they'll completely clean out the store. So weak theft laws have basically caused that. They basically caused a spike in thefts. And the exact same thing happened in Portland. If you look at a city like Portland, Portland is with the drugs. Because what Portland did was they basically decriminalized all drug possession. And when they did that, that basically caused a skyrocket in drug use. So Portland has one of the worst drug problems in America. There's so many drug addicts on the streets in Portland, and people from other states that are drug addicts are coming to Portland just because they're not gonna face any kind of punishment for that. So that's so I will say that weak laws also have an effect on whether on crime rates as well. People don't look at that, but weak laws also affect crime rates. I'm not saying we have to be like the strictest, you know, toughest laws ever, but you also need to take a stand at some point too. Let me see here. I'm good. Yesterday I got a PSP. That's good, Sam. Thank you for the super chat. Gangs kill, so you contradicted yourself. Well, not really, because I said minor offenses. Not everybody that's going to be in a gang is going to be a murderer. So, you know, somebody might fall into a gang when they're younger, like right out of high school, like they're part of a gang. You know, they're part of a gang, and they, you know, they get their lives together. Like, if anybody's ever watched The Equalizer 2, The Equalizer 2 shows a perfect example of, like, a kid that, like, falls in with a gang. He falls in with the wrong crowd, and, like, you know, McCall, who's played by Denzel Washington, helps that kid out. He helps get him out of that gang apartment block, basically. So that's, like, a perfect example of it. So, like, not everybody that's in a gang is necessarily a killer. So there are people, like, when they fall into a gang at an early age, you can help them, and you can help them turn their lives around. And people like that do deserve a second chance. Like, you know, somebody shouldn't have their entire life ruined because they made a stupid mistake when they were younger. If they're willing to, you know, change for the better and they're willing to turn their life around, I think they do deserve a second chance at life. Oh, I forgot. The Last of Us 2 Remaster is $10 for PS4 owners. Oh, okay. Thank you, Blinded Eagle, for the super chat. I might, can you give a shout out to Aiden and Alexander? Well, hello, Aiden and Alexander. Thank you guys for watching my videos. Have I heard about protests in Germany? Is this about the diesel prices, like, being taxed? Like, diesel being taxed more? Is that what it's about? Have I ever played the PSP? Yes, I have a PSP. I played Vice City Stories, Liberty City Stories. I played those games on the PSP back in the day. Okay, let's see here. I think I have a collectible here somewhere. I think it's in here, yeah. Thank you, Golden, for the super chat. Yes, we're going to be continuing Pacific Assault after Manhunt. So after I finish Manhunt, I will be continuing Pacific Assault. Hey, Proddy, I remember you. You're Drake on PSN. What is the oldest vintage game that I still have? I have the Misadventures of Tron Bonne on PS1 with the Mega Man Legends 2 demo disc. That PS1 game is worth over $600 today. Why does it say Kosovo is disputed with Serbia? Well, I'm not gonna get into, like, you know, conflicts like that. The only thing that I will say is that, you know, Serbia makes claims to Kosovo, but I'm not gonna get into stuff like that. I tend to stay away from more controversial things like that. I don't really get involved in stuff like that. Ryan, thank you for the super chat. Is there a moral lesson in Manhunt? I don't know. I don't know if there is any moral lesson. After World War II, many veterans went home and called everything that loads ammunition into firearms a clip. From there, mags have been called clips. Hope this clears it up for you, my brother. Please, super chat? Well, wait, who are you saying please to? But, you don't have to super chat me. It's okay, Blade of Stars. I do appreciate it. But, what I will say is that during World War II, mostly everything was a clip during World War II. Because in World War II, they didn't really have that many detachable magazines on guns. Most, you know, the standard issue gun in most of World War II was bolt-action rifles. For pretty much the vast majority of countries in World War II, their standard issue rifle was a bolt-action rifle. The only country that their standard issue was a semi-auto was the US with the M1 Garand. And all of those rifles use clips. Literally all of them. They use clips to load. The difference between a clip and a magazine is a clip is basically just a cluster of bullets put together, that little metal part that holds it. Magazine is basically a box that holds the rounds together. It's the simplest way to describe it. So like when you see somebody loading an M1 Garand and you see them, like, you know, putting that cluster of bullets inside, like, the Garand, that's basically a clip. When you see, like, you know an MP40, for example, like, you know, World War II submachine gun being loaded, that's a magazine. You know, it's a box. So you know that's the easiest way that I can describe it for people there. Well, one thing I'll say about that, Mario, is that people should just be aware of their district attorney's policies, because district attorneys have a huge effect on how crime is run in your crime is controlled in your area. I think some of the old games are better than the new. Yes, definitely, Sam. Thank you, Sam and Tricky Mario. Is Pablo Escobar the same evil as Hitler? If not, can you talk about Pablo Escobar? I don't know that much about Pablo Escobar. You know, you can't really... Pablo Escobar is evil, but I don't think you can compare him to Hitler, because Hitler killed millions of people and, you know, started the worst conflict in human history. Pablo Escobar was responsible for, you know, hundreds, possibly even thousands of deaths. He was Colombia's biggest drug lord, and I think it was the SEALs who took him down. But Pablo Escobar is definitely responsible for hundreds of deaths, but... Will I ever do a Black Ops 2 story mode playthrough? There's a lot of historical events I could talk about. And yes, I will, Antonio, but I want to play World at War. And after I play World at War, I want to play Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2. But I'm scared about playing World at War again because I'm scared about getting a strike. Thank you, Antonio, because it happened to me before. I remember I was talking to my grandfather who's in Macedonia, and I haven't went in 5 years. And he said, like, Salvatore, I see good things for you, my boy. And asked me to promise that I'll see him. Once I hung up, I actually cried. Oh. I'm sorry to hear about that, Blinded Eagle. It sounds like you were pretty close to your grandpa. Hey, thank you for the super chat. What would have, you're a good man, professional, keep it up. Thank you, man. What would have happened to Hitler if he didn't kill himself? Would Stalin or the Soviet Union torture him? Well, Hitler would have been tried internationally, so it would have been just some giant court. It probably would have been at the Nuremberg trials. That's probably where Hitler would have been tried. I did Golden, but I want to play it again. Oh, you got a trader wagon to sell, Locke? Hold on. Are you on? I'll invite you here, Locke. Invite to session. Manhunt 2, I might give a chance. I might play it. Oh yeah, well if Hitler was tried, he 100% would have been executed, 100%. But the thing about this is he would have been probably he would have been tried internationally. That's what would have probably happened. Have you thought about writing a book? Probably not. It's probably not something I'd do. Probably not something for me. It's waiting for Locke to join in here. Locke's here. Okay, let's help Locke with his, Oh, I'm already in Locke's posse. Okay. Who is more evil, Hitler or Stalin? I would say Hitler, probably. I would say the reason that Hitler is more evil than Stalin is because Hitler was... If Hitler had won World War II, Hitler was going to basically genocide all of Eastern Europe and just basically create it as land for, like, Germans to settle on. So, what people don't know is the Nazis really hated Slavs, with Slavic people, primarily that live in Eastern Europe. The Nazis hated people who were Jewish, people who were handicapped, people who were gay. They hated those groups the most, but they hated people who were Slavic as well. The Nazis saw people as Slavic as, you know, inferior to them. They saw them as basically barbarians. They did not see them as, you know, they were obsessed with the Aryan race. And so what happened is, if the Nazis had actually won World War II, what they would have done is they would have killed everybody in Poland, they would have killed everybody in Ukraine, they would have killed everybody in Belarus, they would have killed everybody in Western Russia, and what they would have done is any of the Slavic people that they didn't need, they would either use them as slave labor, or they would ship them past the Urals, like deport them there. So if Hitler had actually won, you know, World War II, you would have hundreds of millions of people that would have died. Hundreds of millions. So it would have just far surpassed anything that Stalin had done. So Stalin is a you know, horrible person. He killed millions of people. Also, but I would say that Hitler was the worst, because Hitler was going to basically genocide and wipe out entire peoples. So that's what I would say. Is I would say Hitler was worse than Stalin, and also I would say that Hitler was a really bad narcissist. Because Stalin wasn't even as narcissistic as Hitler, because Stalin... One really stupid thing that Stalin did is Stalin had a lot of his good Soviet generals killed. So in the 1930s, before World War II started, Stalin had purged the Soviet army and had killed a lot of generals, a lot of very smart Soviet generals that were really good. And what happened is, when the Nazis had invaded the Soviet Union, they were completely unprepared for it. And the Soviet army in the 1941 and 1942, the Soviet army was disaster. It didn't start regaining its strength until 1943. So, you know, the first 2 years when it got invaded, the Soviet army was, you know, about to collapse. It was a complete disaster. And what happened is, Stalin learned from his mistake. He learned that getting involved in military affairs was stupid. And what Stalin did was he let his generals plan. He didn't get involved in his generals' plans. Like, he would call up Zhukov, who was the marshal, and he would demand an update from Zhukov. But Stalin would not tell Zhukov, you know, how he was supposed to attack, when he was supposed to attack, you know, stuff like that. The thing is, though, Hitler, on the other hand, would constantly interfere in the boardroom. Like, he would tell his generals, like, you know, you have to do it like this and that and that. You don't retreat. You listen to me here. And even if the generals knew that something that Hitler was suggesting tactically was stupid, they still had to listen to him. So, and even if the German generals followed Hitler's plans and it ended in a massive disaster, then Hitler would still blame the generals. That's how it always happened. It's Hitler, until Hitler's dying breath, he would always blame the generals and the German people. He never blamed himself. He never said that he lost Germany the war, that he caused Germany to be completely destroyed. He never took responsibility for anything. Instead, it was always the German people and the German generals. That was the, it was always their fault. He never admitted that he was wrong in anything ever. Let me see here. Love from India. What's my favorite GTA ending? San Andreas. Yeah, GTA San Andreas, I would say. It's the happiest ending in the GTA series, and it's my favorite one. Thank you, Prodi. And, thank you, Doomer. I think that Manhunt has a nihilistic message about some of the worst kind of people in society, such as neo-Nazis, pedophiles, corrupt cops, corrupt politicians, etc. You know what I was thinking about Manhunt, though, Doomer? And I don't know if I'm right on this, but I was thinking to myself, what if the events of Manhunt, what if James Earl Cash is dead? What if he had actually gotten executed and he's dead, but he doesn't know it? And what if, like, Carcer City is actually hell? Like, what if that is the case? Like, that's, like, one thing that I thought about. What if, like, the city itself is hell? Because, like, everybody in the city is, like, pure evil. Like, there's very little characters that are actually good and decent. Like, the only character that was decent was the reporter. That was it. There's no honest, good people in the city whatsoever. Everyone is just pure evil, even the cops. So that's what I was saying, like, what if, like, Carcer City is, like, hell or some kind of purgatory, and, like, you know, Cash is trying to fight his way out and, like, redeem himself. Like, that's what I was at least thinking about. That's what my theory, personally, what I thought about it. I don't know anything about the Tramp. The Tramp was just an alcoholic. We don't really know anything more about him. My favorite GTA game, GTA 4, because I just like the New York setting and I like the seriousness in the story. Well, Carcer City exists in the GTA world, but I'm saying is, what if the Carcer City that we see in Manhunt isn't the real Carcer City, but what if it's just hell? That's, you know, what I was thinking about. So, what's your question then, Ari? Thank you for the super chat. Then I'm sorry I didn't see it. What was the worst war theater between Pacific and European Front for an American in World War II, and why Pacific Front? I would say the Pacific Front was the worst front for America. If you're talking about what the worst front was in general to fight in World War II, would have been the Eastern Front. The Eastern Front was the worst front to fight in. Now, people asked me before, would I rather be a Soviet soldier in the Eastern Front, or would I rather be an American soldier in the Pacific? And I'll tell you, I'd rather be an American soldier in the Pacific. Why? Because the Eastern Front, the thing about the Eastern Front is that if you're an American in the Pacific, you're fighting the Japanese, which in the jungles, in those island hopping campaign, which is very tough battle, typically a lot of close quarter fighting, very hot and tropical climates, and you're fighting an enemy that's basically going to fight to the last man. But there's one difference also, and the difference is that American soldiers get to eat every day. Soviet soldiers don't get to eat every day, and that's the difference between them. There have been times Soviet soldiers would go on for maybe like a week without eating at times. Their supply lines were terrible in the Eastern Front. So just think about that. Is a soldier's diet is a huge part in how he's going to be able to fight battles. If a soldier is not well fed, a soldier's not going to be able to fight good. And so that's why I was saying is I'd rather be an American soldier in the Pacific, because at least you get to eat. That's the thing about that. If I consider playing Red Dead Revolver one day, yeah, I'll definitely consider playing it one day. If you don't mind me asking, opinion on Schindler's List and the boy in the striped pajamas, since we're speaking about Hitler and Nazis. Also, what do I think about neo-Nazis? Schindler's List I saw a very long time ago. I don't remember the film entirely. I remember Liam Neeson plays in that movie. I know that's based on a true story, but I saw that movie when I was a long time ago. I do remember the boy in the striped pajamas. That one I do remember. I would say that the boy in the striped pajamas is probably the most horrifying World War II film that I think I've ever seen. Because that movie shows you that kids are just generally so innocent, and kids aren't taught hate. Kids don't learn hate on their own. They're taught hate by other people. That's generally how it happens. And so, that, I forget the characters' names, because it's been some time since I've seen that one too, but that one I remember more better. I remember it's like the two main characters in the movie. It was like the one kid, he was the Nazi camp commander's son, and little kid, and then the other kid was the kid in the concentration camp, and both of the kids did not fully understand what was happening, and they were still friends with each other. They talked to each other through the wire, and then at the end of the movie, when they just both, he went into the camp, to help his friend, and then they basically went in the showers, and they both just got killed by the gas. I think that was one of the most, horrifying endings that I think I've ever seen to a movie. It's honestly scarier than, like, any horror ending that I think I've ever seen. It's just, that scene was just so disturbing. But you think about that stuff was going on every single day. Every single day, they were just killing people, murdering people, gassing them like that. It was just horrible. And what I will say about neo-Nazis is I hope that they can look into their heart and realize that the ideology that they're supporting is pure evil, and that they can turn their lives around and live as productive people and not have to follow such a evil, disgusting ideology. Do you like They Have No Heart? Well, you are right on that. A lot of people don't. Do you like the old Call of Duty games better than the new? The old ones typically, yeah. I like the old ones more. Can I make top 10 worst things Rockstar Games ever done? I will make that video one day, yes.
Many folks about.
Be here. Here. But, what I will tell you something is, Blade, is, there was this reality TV show that, it was like a talk show, I think. I think it was the 1980s or the 1990s. Somebody in the comments might know what show I'm talking about. But basically, I think the guy who ran the show was a black guy. I'm trying to remember who ran the show. But the only thing I remember about the show is I remember that the host of the show basically brought on a bunch of, neo-Nazi skinheads. This is like, 1980s or 1990s. Or might have been Oprah. Might have actually been Oprah. But whatever, anyways, when they brought on the neo-Nazis, the skinheads, these guys were, like, dressed in, like, leather jackets, like, black boots, they had bald heads, tattoos all over themselves, and they were just, extremely nasty on the show, shouting a bunch of racist crap, and just being very offensive to the host. And then what ends up happening is, there's another clip from that video that I watched, where it was like 20 or 30 years later, that exact same show, was it Montel Williams? It was, well, it was like 20 or 30 years later, that exact same show, they brought on those exact same neo-Nazis like 20 or 30 years later. And these guys were like, punk, kids, like, young adults. When they were, like, 20 or 30 years later, these guys are all different now, like 20 or 30 years later, and all of them are just, crying on TV, they're all apologizing, they're all saying, I'm sorry for what I did, I was an idiot when I was younger, and stuff like, and the host forgave them. So it was like that, so people can still be saved. People that are brainwashed into those, like, terrible, ideologies, they can still be saved. Young kids, especially when they get into, like, crap like that, like, communism, fascism, all that stuff, they get brainwashed into these ideologies. They can still be saved. They can still change. It's very hard a lot of times to get them to change their minds, but those guys, they changed. It was, I don't know what in their lives caused them to change, but it's the same thing, basically, when kids, like, join gangs. They join these extremist groups. It's usually what happens is these kids grow up in a really bad household. They grow up in a bad household. They usually don't have a parent. They turn to these extremist groups. They turn to these gangs, these mafias, whatever else you can think of, even these terrorist groups. And they basically get brainwashed into that ideology, and they think that these people are their only friends. Basically, they're too naive until they realize the consequences, yeah. So it's like, these, at least those guys were able to get their lives together, and at least, change for the better. I guess they somehow, when they were growing up, I don't know if it was revealed on the show what caused them to change, but somewhere along their lives, all of them basically decided that was wrong, and they just changed their mind, they changed their views. So that's what a lot of people, what a lot of people don't understand is that when you have young people that are brought into these, like, extremist groups, when they're, like, adults, there's pretty much no saving them when they're adults, because when they are adults in these extremist groups, they are so far into the propaganda, they're gone. There's pretty much very little to anything that will get them to change. You can't save them at that point. It's very, very difficult. When they're younger and they fall into these extremist groups, these dangerous groups, they can still be saved. They can still, change their lives around. It's hard to do, but it can still be done. But when they're adults and they're in those extremist groups, you can't really do anything at that point. They're too far gone. Bro, why was Kazakhstan the last country to leave the Soviet Union instead of Russia, even after Glasnost and Perestroika by Mikhail Gorbachev? Well, Kazakhstan was always just a big supporter of the Soviet Union. They just have been throughout the history. They were part of the Soviet Union, but they were just, Kazakhstan had a huge amount of communists, basically. It was like they didn't want the Soviet Union to basically fall apart. Was it Geraldo Rivera's show? Was it him? Okay, well then I might be making a mistake, on who the host was. The only thing I remember is that they were extremely, racist to the host, and they were very offensive to the host. But then they, like, decades later, they all got their act together and they changed for the better. Let me see here. This was my super chat. Hi, I think it would be cool, if you play Red Dead Revolver one day. Just a suggestion. Keep up the great work. Shame the super chat didn't appear, but it still went for well. Thank you, Ari. I'll play Red Dead Revolver definitely one day. Thank you, PlayStation fanboy. Can I make the top worst things Take-Two have done? I could possibly do that, yeah. I think the Rockstar one would be better, though. I'm playing the old Modern Warfare 3, and it's so much fun. I can't wait to kill Makarov. His death is the most satisfying video game's villain death. Oh, yeah. Definitely. And especially after Makarov kills Yuri, too, you can just, after Makarov kills Yuri, it's extremely, like, you're so pissed they just killed Yuri that you just basically just want to do what Captain Price did, just strangle Makarov. Hey, Gretty, what's up, man? What? It was Oprah? Was it Oprah? I'll have to look up what the show was. Because I remember it was many years ago. I saw like a clip of it. Greens from frozen Chicago. Yeah. Well, the Midwest is extremely cold now. Very, very cold.
I'll keep moving.
Okay. Were Lost Cardinals the weakest gang in Saints Row 1? No, that was the Rollers. I've been in Maine in November. I was in Maine. I know, Gaiman. Yeah, Maine can be a pretty cold state, too. It snowed in November when I was in Maine, too. It is the same map as the single player. The Wire had a season focusing on saving children from joining into the drug trade. Some are saved, but some weren't, unfortunately. It also criticized the education system. Thank you, Mr. Nowhere. Thank you for the super chat. But yeah, it's what I was saying is that a lot of these kids, the reason they go into these extremist groups, these extremist groups, these terrorist groups, extremist groups, gangs, mafias, all of these groups. The reason a lot of times kids go into these groups is because something bad is going on in their life. They don't have a parents. Maybe they're orphans. Maybe they're being abused at home. Maybe they're extremely poor. There's just a lot of stuff that is a lot of factors that play, and so these kids meet these extremist groups. These extremist groups a lot of times they are extremely manipulative, and these kids think that these people are their friends, but they're really manipulating them. And so these kids get into these extremist groups. They start being brainwashed into the ideologies. It's these communist groups, these neo-Nazi groups. They recruit these desperate kids. They brainwash them into this crap. And then they grow up, believing this nonsense. And so it's like, if you get these kids at a young age, you can still, try to save them. You can still try to prevent them from, turning their life upside down. Making, a mistake that they're going to regret for the rest of their life. But most psychologists will tell you this too, that it's a lot easier to help to save the kids and, have them change their minds, like the young adults, we're talking right after high school, maybe early 20s. It's easier to save those people and get them to change their ways than when people become full adults. Then it's at that point it's just they're too far gone. It's just. Do you think Dimitri was in a good household? We don't know anything about Dimitri's life in GTA 4, but what I will say about Dimitri, though, is that Dimitri was a psychopath. So regardless of whether Dimitri was would have been in a good household or not, he still would have been evil. He would have still been a messed up person. Well, I guess being in a bad household would definitely have an effect on that too, but Dimitri was always going to be the person that he was regardless. What a lot of people don't know is that psychopaths are actually born psychopaths, because there's this one part of the brain that controls basically your empathy for others, and psychopaths are born without that. So that, I think it's called the prefrontal cortex. Dimitri does not have that. It doesn't exist for him. So there's no sense of honor, there's no sense of loyalty, there's no sense of friendship, love. It doesn't exist for him. Those things are just foreign concepts to him. I'm gonna just push right through. I'll see you, Arctic. Bro, it's not the Los Cardinales. Oh. I'm sorry I wasn't on yesterday, Pro. My TV died on me. It's okay, man. You don't have to apologize. Who do you think was more evil, Micah or Dimitri? I actually asked my community this question. A year ago, I actually made a poll, and I asked people, who do you think is more evil, Dimitri or Micah? And it was like 70% voting for Dimitri and 30% voted for Micah. And I would say, in my opinion, that Dimitri is worse than Micah. And why? The reason I would say Dimitri is worse than Micah is because Arthur always knows that Micah is a scumbag. He knows he's a horrible person. The only thing that Arthur doesn't really truly know is that Micah is ratting out the gang. That's the one thing he doesn't truly know until the end. But he knows that Micah is a horrible, terrible person. Dimitri, on the other hand, is different. Dimitri pretends to be Nico's friend. He pretends to be a reasonable, nice guy. He manipulates people constantly, uses people just with his charm. Pretends to be that reasonable, nice guy. But in reality, Dimitri is a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what he is, primarily. So I would say that Dimitri is worse than Micah. The Los Carnales? Los means the, dude. You said the Carnales. I know. I'm doing it on purpose. It's the joke in Saints Row. Lake Fishing Challenge. Why don't we do this? I haven't done this in some time. Well, El Rubio is kind of the Colombian cartel. Have I ever been to Indiana to visit FOTS? I've been in Indiana. I've driven through Indiana several times, but I haven't actually visited. No. Where are the big fish? Because last time that I did this...
There are no big fish.
There's no big fish here? Okay, well this...
So who's winning today?
Then there's medium fish here, right?
I believe so.
Oh, damn. Worst game I ever played? The most recent worst game I ever played was the Saints Row reboot. Okay. Okay. Much better at this than last time. On.
I could never do this in real life.
I couldn't either, no.
Patience.
I agree with you. I probably could not do this in real life either. Okay. Thoughts on the movie Goodfellas? I never, I saw Goodfellas. It was a long time ago, though. That one, I remember Henry Hill. It was that was the one. What's your thoughts on the recent GTA update? I think that it was a decent update, but the worst part about the update is waiting like a week to do the missions again. Yeah, I'll make a video pissing off scammers again. You know, there's the next scammer that I want to piss off is the New York City luxury apartment scammers. If you don't know what that is, that's basically where scammers will put an ad on Craigslist for like some luxury apartment in New York City, and they'll be like $500 a month, which is that's like you no, it's like a luxury apartment like that in like New York City would be like probably over over $10,000 a month. It would not be like a luxury apartment would not be $500 a month in New York City. It would be way more than that. But that's one that I'll probably do a video on in the future. And I was thinking that when I do when I call up the luxury apartment scammer, I was thinking about pretending to be either Phil Bell or Ray Bacino. That's what I was thinking about pretending to be next GTA 4 character I impersonate. I do like, hey, how you doing? Or I could do it, a ditch, what are we doing today? Like, you know, do accents like that and just, like, talk to them. And then I'll be like, when I talk to the, I could be like Phil Bell, and I could just talk to the luxury apartment scammer, and I could be all like, hey, you check this place for bugs? That's what I would say to them, and the scammer would be confused what I mean by that. Like, me and the boss got some business to discuss. We're in waste management. No, you know what, like, what Phil Bell says? Like, hey, how about them swingers, huh? That's what Phil Bell says all the time on the phone. You could just say that to them. I loved him like a brother-in-law. That's a reference to Sopranos. Yep. No, I've never fished in real life. I probably would suck at it.
Ooh, took that lead.
My father, I know he went fishing a long time ago, but you know what my father told me? He told me a story once when he caught a fish, and he put it in a bucket, and then when he brought it home, and he was actually washing it in the sink, that the fish actually came back to life. So when he poured water on it, when he was washing it, that it came back to life.
Guess I won, huh? Congratulations. Ooh. I expect in real life to say people.
Pro, sad that Billy Leotardo died at 46 years old. He was still a kid. Yeah, he was. I remember Phil kept saying that. When do I think the Wild West started, and when did it end? The Wild West didn't really have a date when it started. The Wild West has just existed for a very, very, very long time. As for when it ended, I mean, you could make the argument that it didn't really end until like the 1940s or 50s even. A lot of times people think that just because people think that just because when cars were invented that automatically the Wild West ended. Not really. Who is worse, Zhao or Dimitri, and why? Dimitri, because Zhao doesn't betray, Zhao doesn't betray Huang. Thank you, PlayStation fanboy. Okay. Rational for president of 2024. I'm too young to be president. And even I probably wouldn't want to be president. It'd probably be too stressful. You'd be dealing with a lot of nonsense.
Hi there.
Oh, and thank you, Fernando. I'm sorry, I'm sorry I didn't see your super chat. Bro, what is your opinion of a certain YouTuber who now bans foreigners who donate with other currency, not in dollars, because it pays him less in dollars? What? Who the hell is doing that? This is the first time I'm hearing about this, but this person sounds like a scumbag.
Ready to go.
This is, they ban him? He bans people who donate to him because they don't pay him in dollars? That's... That sounds like a scumbag.
D'accord.
Who's doing that? Isn't the money automatically converted? Yeah, it is. I appreciate every super chat. It doesn't matter literally to me what currency somebody donates to me in. I appreciate all super chats. This scumbag gets donations in pesos, so he bans them because when he converted, he gets pennies on the dollar. DSP? I've heard of that channel before. I don't know much about it, but if he is doing that, that's really scummy. Thoughts on Alec Baldwin being indicted? That's a great question, Jack Chanel. Here's what I'll say about it. I think Alec Baldwin deserves to be indicted. I do. And I actually posted a comment today about it. There was like an MSNBC video, and there was like a bunch of people started arguing with me. Like, my comment got like 300 likes. And like a bunch of people started arguing with me in the comments. I didn't really respond. Anyways, here's the thing is, the reason I think Alec Baldwin should be charged is because I feel like a lot of the people that are defending Alec Baldwin, they don't seem to understand the full facts of the case. And they seem to, it's like he's their favorite celebrity, and that's why they're defending him primarily, saying, oh, it was an accident, it was, he didn't mean to do it. Well, it doesn't matter even if he didn't mean to do it, it's the fact that it happened. He was reckless, he was negligent. That's, so, even if somebody didn't mean to kill somebody, if they were reckless and negligent through that, they're still going to suffer the consequences. Now, let me do a poker game here. Now, about Alec Baldwin, it's not going to be murder, what he's going to be charged with. It's probably going to be some form of manslaughter. That's probably what he's... Because murder requires planning, and there's no evidence that he planned to kill her. It was a spur-of-the-moment killing. But what I'll say about this is the people who defend Alec Baldwin, they don't understand a few things about that case. They don't understand the full facts. The first thing is, Alec Baldwin lied. He lied to the police. You know, there's no doubt in my mind that he lied. And him lying is definitely a factor in him being charged, because if he was straight up honest with them, he might not have been charged. But because he was lying, that shows intent to cover something up. Now, you're probably wondering, what was he lying about specifically? What he was lying about was how the firearm functioned, because he fired a single-action revolver. How a single-action revolver basically works is you load it into the cylinder, you press the cylinder into the gun, and then what you do is you pull the hammer back. And what happens is that gun cannot go off any other way. The hammer has to be pulled back, and there has to be a round in the chamber. The gun cannot go off any other way besides pulling the trigger. It can't. It cannot. Don't take my word for it. But if you go on YouTube, you can see so many videos of just experts, people that know way more about firearms than me, much more. And these people have tested that exact model of firearm. And they tried to basically recreate that thing, and they have stated that there is no way for that gun to go off unless the trigger is pulled. There is no other way for that gun to go off whatsoever. And so when Alec Baldwin was saying that he didn't pull the trigger, let me see here. I'll make a $1 bet on this one. But you're the one who asked me about this, Jack Chanel. What do you think, personally? But do people agree with me that Alec Baldwin... I mean, you can disagree with me. I'm not going to be pissed at anybody. But that's just my view, personally. Is that I think that he deserves to get charged for it. And another thing about the situation is the staff who worked on the set for that movie, they actually walked off the set before the shooting actually happened. And the reason they walked off the set was to protest unsafe working conditions that Baldwin was operating under. So they actually walked off set. People walked off set that same day because they were pissed about how Alec Baldwin was handling the situations. And for the people that say he's an actor and he had a prop gun and and so therefore it's not his fault, here's what I will say about this. It's not a prop gun. It's a real gun. Prop gun is something that does not fire. It doesn't fire real bullets. It's made to look like a real gun and sound like a real gun, but it's not a real gun. A lot of times these movie sets, what people don't know, a lot of movies that use guns, they use real guns. Like, if anybody has ever seen that movie Lord of War, you know, the movie Lord of War with Nicolas Cage, where he's playing as that Ukrainian arms dealer after the Soviet Union falls apart. That room, when he walks into that room with just AK-47s, you know, hundreds of AK-47s, all of those guns are real. All of those were not fakes. All of those were real. But those weren't AK-47s, those were the Czech variants of it, which is actually a very different firearm. But you're probably wondering, why do they use real guns on movie sets? Why don't they use, you know, actually prop guns? The reason they don't use, they use real guns is because a lot of times it's actually easier to have real guns because it's cheaper. That's ultimately the reason. They use real guns because they're cheaper. The prop guns sometimes cost more than the actual gun. So the AK-47 is the most mass-produced assault rifle in history. There are so many AK-47s out there that getting an actual AK-47 for a movie could probably be cheaper than getting a prop gun for the movie. And what they'll do is they'll use blanks in that. So that's what they will do for a lot of times for these movies. So they will use real guns because it's cheaper. That's the primary reason. And so for the people that say that Alec Baldwin was, you know, an actor and it's not his job, it's the armorer's responsibility, the armorer should definitely be charged. I'm not disputing that. I'm not saying she shouldn't be. She's guilty as hell also. You know, she loaded a live round in there. That's pure negligence. But But Alec Baldwin also has to suffer some responsibility for this. Some. I don't know exactly what the charges are gonna be, but he should suffer some kind of punishment for that. Because here's what I'll tell you is, if you are going to be starring in a movie, I don't care if you're an actor or not. If you're going to be starring in a movie, and you're going to be handling real firearms, like you're actually going to be touching an actual real firearm, then you should know at least how the firearm operates. You should know how the firearm works. And rule number 1 for gun safety, for anybody who's ever fired a gun before, rule number 1 for gun safety is you always check if the gun is loaded before you pick it up and you pull the trigger. You only pull the trigger at something that you intend to shoot, like a paper target. You never point the gun at something living. You never do something like that, ever. That's called flagging somebody. You never do something like that, ever. So, rule number 1 in gun safety is that you literally have to check if the firearm is loaded. Even if somebody gives you a firearm and they tell you the firearm's clear, you still have to check if the firearm's loaded, because you cannot use that as a defense. Always treat a firearm as loaded. Yup, exactly.
Old Mrs. Pym's not doing too well. I fear she may not last much longer. Oh, yes?
A lot of people who are against guns have no idea how they work. I'm sure you've heard of a similar incident involving Brandon Lee in 1993. No, I haven't. Is that the actor who put the prop gun to his head and shot himself because he was messing around? Is that the one? Because I know there was an accident with an actor a long time ago with that. Thank you, Mario. Is Jack Chanel still here? Jack Chanel was the one who asked me about this. I think he should deserve to go to prison because he should have told the truth years ago when this took place. Baldwin also checked the firearm prior to using it so we could verify it was clear. And how do you know so much about everything? I don't know about everything. There's a lot of things I don't know about, but this specific situation, I did read about this. And you know what I find so weird about this situation? A lot of people are saying he's not an expert on guns. He doesn't know anything about guns. But yet, he constantly talks about guns. In interviews he's given way before this shooting, he's constantly talked about guns. And he constantly called gun owners irresponsible, and he insulted gun owners so many times. And then he does the most negligent thing possible, where he does not check a firearm. He doesn't check if the firearm is loaded. Doesn't check if it's loaded, if it has a live round in it. And he points it at something that he did not intend to shoot, and he pulls the trigger. That is literally the most negligent thing that you could possibly do with a firearm. Two, three. Oh wait, do I have a straight? 2, 3, 4, 5. No, if I get one more, I'll get a straight. See if we can get some people to fold here. He didn't shoot an actor. I think she was in charge of photography on set. I think that's what she was in charge of. But the firearms in Manhunt kind of suck. They do. If I get one more... no. I almost had that. I could have had a straight. Oh, yeah, I know about that, Mitchell. The armorer was an idiot, but Alec Baldwin has to have some responsibility for this. I know he didn't intend to kill her, but he was negligent. Yeah, I'm gonna play Yakuza one day. A good friend of mine, Chasaruni here, he got me Yakuza 0 the other day, which I really appreciate. So, this year, I think I will do a playthrough of it. Hey Pro, I'm writing a paper for college arguing that capitalism is a viable economic system compared to communism, socialism, and anarchism. Can you give me some tips or personal opinions? Here's what I will say to you, Preston. One thing that you should write about capitalism in your paper. And this is something that my teacher, when I was in college, one of my professors, he said something that I will never forget. And it was like one of the best quotes that I have ever heard, anybody ever say. And he said this is what my professor said about capitalism. He said, capitalism is not a perfect system. It has its problems, but it's far better than any other system that has been tried in human history. And that is so true. Capitalism does have problems. It's not a perfect system. But if you compare it to everything else that has been tried in history, everything else compared to capitalism has ended in absolute disaster. Every other economic system. Always. You know, feudalism. Feudalism was not capitalism. That was medieval Europe. That was a disaster. That was terrible. You know, you had the aristocracy and the monarchy just abusing, you know, the peasantry. You had communism. You know, how many communist countries you could list off. It was a disaster. It was a complete failure. And anarchism, you know, anarchism only historically existed in 2 countries, really. It existed in Catalonia during the Spanish Civil War, and it also existed in some, you could argue, in modern-day Somalia. And anarchism is a disaster on its own self, too. So it's like, you know, every other system you compare it to, it's always a disaster. It's like, you know, whenever you hear, like, you know, some revolutionary coming to power and saying, you know, I have an idea for a better system, it's going to be better than capitalism, but just take that with a grain of salt, because it's always been historically a disaster. Every single time some revolutionary came to power and say, I have a better system than capitalism, it's always ended in disaster. So that's what I'll say about it, is that when you're writing that paper about capitalism, don't deny the problems that exist in capitalism. Write about the problems that exist in capitalism. But also write that while capitalism may not be a perfect system, it's better than all the other, you know, systems that have been tried in history. That's what I would write in your paper. Please play the Army of Two games one day, Pro. I'll definitely play them. Yeah. I'm so disappointed that they never made a sequel to the Devil's Cartel. Brandon Lee was killed on the set of the movie The Crow when he was shot by a gun that was supposed to be filled with blanks. Had a live bullet in it. Is that the actor who put the gun to his head and was messing around? Somalia is a libertarian country. No, Argentina is a libertarian country. So Somalia is an anarchistic country. You know what I think is the funniest thing ever? Is like you have those kids in college that say, I hate capitalism. I hate capitalism. Is like, you know, communism is a better system. And then you know what you see them do? You see them just pull out their iPhone 15. That's what I'll say. That is capitalism that is in your hands right there. It's like the clothes that you're wearing are capitalism. The car that you drive is capitalism. The money that's in your wallet is capitalism. That's all capitalism. So I find that funny. Is like the kids that are like constantly like, you know, complaining about capitalism are driving, you know, some fancy car, or they have their iPhone 15s out. Oh, it was somebody else? Okay, Eric. Yeah, and I tell you is that I'll tell you guys is that I've dealt with anarchists before. I've met anarchists before, and I can tell you is that they are not they don't think critically on things. In my college, there was a few students who identified as anarchists, and what I'll say about this is this one student. He was in my, what's the thing called? It's called, I think it was called, what was it called? Public speaking. I think that's what the class was called, public speaking. It was like a class that taught us how to speak to people, like in public, how to give speeches and stuff like that. And so there's this one kid in my class who identified as an anarchist. And do you know what his career was? Do you know what he was going to college for? He was going to college for being a pilot. He was getting a pilot's license. That's like, it's like, how can you be an anarchist and you want to be a pilot? It's like, without these air traffic control laws, it would be disaster. You'd have planes that would be crashing into each other. You wouldn't know when planes are landing. It would just, without like government rules on that, it would just be a disaster in the sky. Like, it would just, it's like, without air traffic control laws, like, you wouldn't be able to get from point A to point B, like, safely. You couldn't. But this is when I was, like, 18 years old, when I was in college. So, like, this kid probably changed his mind by then. I highly doubt he still has those views today. But, there is, I'll tell you something, my professor in college, though, he destroyed anarchy really quickly. One of my professors, he was a former police detective, and he asked the class before who here thinks that anarchy is a good system. And there's one kid in the back who said that he thinks that anarchy could work. And, you know, my teacher asked him, you know, what neighborhood do you live in? And he told him that he lived in a neighborhood that was like 20 minutes away from the college. And my teacher basically said to him, okay, if you lived in an anarchistic system, you wouldn't get to the school alive. And the kid's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, without the government, you wouldn't have roads, and you wouldn't have also, you know, traffic lights. You know, you would not get here without getting into an accident. You'd crash your car before you even get to the school. So that's, so my teacher just shut it down really quickly. Just like that. Why does everyone shame community college? There's nothing wrong with community college. It's like, people think that, that because people think that community college is like, and this is just what other people are saying. A lot of times people think that community college is like a poor person's college. That's what people think. There is nothing wrong with community college. And don't let anybody shame you into telling you that, oh, community college is like a joke, or it's not, you know, it's not a good school. No. It's you're still getting an education. You're still learning something. You're still getting a degree. So don't listen to those people. Those people are stupid. And it's like, people shame trade schools more than that. They look at trade schools and they say, oh, trade schools are useless. But I would actually argue opposite. I would say that trade schools are more useful than those fancy private colleges, because the fact that trade schools actually teach you what you need for, like, an actual career, to get you ready for a career. They don't waste your time with, like, classes that you don't need. People being anarchists yet wanting to become a pilot makes me think of stupid things I do with planes in Saints Row 2, Just Cause 2, and GTA San Andreas. Thank you, Mr. Waifu. Thank you for the super chat. And you know what the funny thing is? That same kid, who was an anarchist in my, you know, public speaking class, I asked him to name me a civilization that was successfully anarchist, like a successful anarchist civilization. And do you know what he told me was a successful anarchist civilization? You know what he told me? He told me that NASA was a successful civilization. Now, for people that don't know what NASA is most people know NASA from Assassin's Creed Black Flag. If you ever played Assassin's Creed Black Flag, NASA was basically a giant pirate island. It was an island that pirates in the Caribbean had basically taken over and had basically created their own mini country. The pirates did actually have their own country. It was small, but it was like a big island with some few towns that pirates basically had controlled. And so this was an island that was in the Caribbean, and this anarchist was telling me that NASA was a successful, anarchist civilization. And he told me that the pirates weren't, like, bad people because they were oftentimes, like, attacking, like, empire ships, like the British Empire, French Empire, and Spanish Empire. And you could definitely make that argument. A lot of these pirates weren't necessarily bad people. A lot of them were attacking, like, imperial ships, like, the ships that they attacked, like, oftentimes, like, ships of the British Empire and, like, Spanish Empire. These empires were already stealing from other people. So, the pirates weren't, I wouldn't say that the pirates were good guys, but I wouldn't say that they were evil either. However, though, the argument that he was making when he said that that NASA was a successful anarchist civilization, I told him no, it wasn't. And I said to him, the pirates had leaders. They had leaders that they followed, because anarchy basically means no rulers. That's what anarchy is. So even if you're going to say that the pirate country, that the Nassau pirate country, that it was a successful anarchist country, they still had leaders. They still had people that they followed. People like Blackbeard were like one of their leaders. And You know what he told me? He told me he's like no, people didn't have to follow them. Like, you know, they wouldn't have to listen to them. They wouldn't have to follow them. Oh yeah, they didn't have to listen to them. You try being on Blackbeard's ship. Blackbeard gives you an order and you tell Blackbeard, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm an anarchist. I don't believe in rules." Try telling that to Blackbeard while you're on his ship and just see what Blackbeard would do. Because, like, imagine being on one of these pirate ships and be like, "Oh yeah, I don't believe in orders. I'm an anarchist." Like, you know, the pirates would throw you off the ship. So that's, so these pirates, you had to listen to the captains. There was this, like, it's this, using that as an example of, like, that anarchy was, like, you know, the pirate country was, like, anarchistic. No, the pirate leaders were the ones who ruled it. It was just, oh, man. It's such a terrible example. See, I sent you a Wikipedia article on the Brandon Lee incident on Twitter. Also, have you ever seen those? No, I've never seen them. I've seen YouTube videos of it. But it's like I said earlier, it's like, you know, people fall into these extremist groups when they're young. You know, they get brainwashed by this nonsense, and they can still turn their lives around, they can still change their lives around when they're still young. They can still, you know, change their lives around. But once they get older, and, you know, they support groups like that, it's very hard to get them to change their minds. Thank you, Mario, for the super chat. Yeah, I know, it was the Pirate Republic, Kevin. That's what it was called, but... Bro, you no longer read my comment. Is it because I said Cuba is a good and economically well? I hate dictatorship countries like North Korea and Iran, but Cuba, Castro did well, and it's an exception. I'm not ignoring your comment. I just didn't see your comment earlier. Bully stream probably tomorrow. Probably when we'll do it. Cuba is not a successful country. I don't know what you mean by that. The thing is, though, is you could argue that communist Cuba is more successful than Batista's Cuba, because Batista was the dictator that was before Castro. Because Batista was... You could make the argument that Batista was even worse than Castro, but it still is... Cuba is not a successful country by any means. And Cuba is a dictatorship. It very much is. It's an authoritarian country. It's like, you don't have freedom of speech in Cuba. You can't, you know... Can you walk down the streets in Cuba and you just say, you know, screw Castro, screw communism? You can't do that. And what I'll say about Cuba is, Cuba also, what they did for a very long time, I think they only recently changed it, but for decades in Cuba, you could not be a member of the Communist Party in Cuba unless you were an atheist. If you were a Catholic, you were actually forbidden from being a member of the Communist Party in Cuba. So the Communist Party in Cuba heavily discriminated against religions. But Cuba is a disaster. And what I'll tell you about Cuba is, the best example that I can give you that Cuba is a disaster is, if Cuba was such a successful country, you would have so many people going to Cuba, not running from Cuba. Because there's so many people that come from Cuba, and I watch YouTube videos of, like, this one guy from Cuba when he's, like, brought to an American supermarket for the first time, and he goes to an American supermarket and he's just so amazed that, like, you can get all this food, you know, everything, like, just on the shelf. Because in Cuba, the food is rationed. It's controlled by the government. There is no private industry. There's no private stores like that. It's all by the government. And the government dictates how much food you can get in a week. It's not like you can just go on the shelf and just, you know, pick out, you know, how much food you want. You know, it doesn't work like that. Sure, Cuba has had reforms. But what have the reforms been? The reforms have always been private sector reforms. That's what Cuba's reforms have been. I met a Cuban bartender here in Brazil, a fine gentleman, but ask about his country and he tells you how bad it is. Yeah. That's, it's like there would not be so many people that are running from Cuba if Cuba was this successful place. And think about it, has there been one communist country in history that people have fled to? That people have, you know, ran to in large numbers? No. I cannot think of one communist country in history that people are mass immigrating to. I can't think of one. I cannot think of one, honestly. It doesn't exist. You know what? I'll tell you something about it is, do you know what the most successful communist country has been in history? And I'm not defending this country also when I say this. But out of all the communist countries that have existed in history, do you know which communist country had the highest living standards? Do you know which one? Does anybody know which communist country here in the comments had the highest living standards? Let me see if somebody in the comments knows which country it is. Right there, few people got it right. Yugoslavia. And you never hear the people who always say that communism was a good system. You never hear them talk about Yugoslavia, when Yugoslavia was the one communist country where people had better living standards than the Soviet Union, better living standards than East Germany. But why was Yugoslavia so much more successful than all the other communist countries? There's a bunch of things. Yugoslavia was a communist country, but Yugoslavia was a non-aligned country. It was a neutral country. There was not once, and no, I don't love like Yugoslavian communism. I'm not defending, Yugoslavian communism, but I'm explaining why Yugoslavia was successful compared to the other countries. Yugoslavia was a non-aligned country. It was a neutral country. There has not been one neutral communist country in history besides Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was literally the only neutral communist country in history, because every single communist country in history was either aligned with the Soviet Union or with China. There was no neutral country, no country that was in between, that was not taken a side. The Yugoslavia hated the Soviet Union, so they were a communist country, but they hated the Soviet Union. Yugoslavia traded with both the Soviet Union and the West. So it traded with the Warsaw Pact and with the West. It had markets open to both sides, the West and the Soviet Union. And what Yugoslavia did was, they exported their products to other countries, especially Western countries. The Soviet Union did not export their products to Western countries. They only exported their products to other, communist countries, Warsaw Pact countries. Do you know what Yugoslavia's most successful export was? It was the Yugo. Remember the Yugo cars? Those cars? Those cars were not great cars. The Yugo was not a great car. But what made the Yugo successful was the Yugo was the most affordable car out there. Is that everybody could buy the Yugo. No matter how poor somebody was, most people could afford a Yugo. Most people could get that, because it was an extremely affordable car that pretty much everyone could get, and that was Yugoslavia's most successful export. And so ironically, this communist country made a lot of money by exporting their cars to other countries. And Yugoslavia had the strongest passport in the world because it didn't become isolationist like the Soviet Union, where it was only going to associate with other Warsaw Pact countries and wasn't going to associate with any other country. And also, here's another thing is, Yugoslavia also did another thing that no other communist country did in history. And do you know what that was? It let its people leave. If you wanted to leave Yugoslavia, you could go. The government was not going to stop you. That's the thing is that Yugoslavia allowed their people to freely travel. And Yugoslavia had the strongest passport in the world at one point. It was stronger than the US's. So I'm not defending Yugoslavian communism. Is that people in the West still had higher living standards than Yugoslavia. But the reason that Yugoslavia had the highest living standards out of any communist country is because they were non-interventionists. They didn't get involved in they didn't take sides. They were neutral. They traded with everyone, both the West and the Soviet Union. They exported products to other countries. They let their people freely travel. That was one of the things that made Yugoslavia more successful than the other places. Yeah, I've been doing bad in poker. I had okay earlier, but I was a little distracted by the conversation, but it's fine. Do you know about the story with Tito and Stalin? Yes, I do know about that. Is that Stalin tried to have Tito, the dictator of Yugoslavia, assassinated because Tito was basically not going to be a puppet of his. And what happened was every single time Stalin sent an assassin, the assassin was captured and killed by Tito. And basically Tito had foiled numerous Stalin assassination attempts that he basically wrote a letter to Stalin. And he told him, to stop sending assassins after me, because if you send one more assassin, I will send my man to Moscow, and I won't have to send another one. Which is basically saying that my assassin isn't going to fail. The Doctor in L.A. Noire is voiced by Micah's voice actor. That I do know, yes. Deadliest Sniper, that's Simo High Huffinish Sniper. Cheap tacos, huh, yep. Best food out there. Did Nico live? Well, Nico's from Yugoslavia. My relatives actually work in Indonesian embassy in North Korea. Yes, we are a few countries that established relations with them. That he can tell North Korea was a very grim place. Ugh. That must be kind of creepy to be working in an embassy inside North Korea. And also, I can't imagine what it's like for the embassy staff. Like, if the embassy staff try to walk out, go to, like, a store or something like that, they're probably going to be followed by the North Korean government, by people from the North Korean government. What would happen if Jimmy Pecorino decides to kill Phil instead of Ray? Well, that would be even stupider than killing Ray, honestly. That would just be dumber. That would actually accelerate his downfall even faster. Hey, Pro, I got a question. If Jackie Aprile was still alive, do you think he will be the best boss? I would say he was probably a better boss than Tony. But I don't know, he didn't have that much screen time. Okay, Ace and 6. And yes, it was... You were right, my relatives can't buy their own stuff within Pyongyang. They can only order food or stuff with locals who work in an embassy. Oh. Hmm. Bro, you're a made man. No, I'm not. I'm gonna get some of my money back now. Oh yeah, Carmine was probably the best boss in The Sopranos. I'm gonna win this hand. There is no question in my mind I'm gonna win this hand. They're not gonna beat me. Yeah, just bet your money I'm gonna win it. Come on, go ahead, bet. There you go. Thank you. There we go. Now, interesting, you know, the Formula One was first raced in Hungary in 1986 before the fall of communism. There were also many Grand Prix motorcycle races in East Germany, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia. Well, Yugoslavia welcomed them, but the Warsaw Pact countries weren't as open to them until much later on. Thank you, Mario. Kind of ridiculous how childish Phil Leotardo is. Carmine Senior is also old school, and he knew the mafia was a business. Do you know what I liked about Carmine Senior in The Sopranos? What I liked about him is that Carmine was always focused on making money for his family. Carmine understood what the purpose of a mafia family was. It was to generate money. That's what he understood primarily about it. It was not about emotion. It was not about some dumb politics. Not about some personal feelings or stuff like that. It was about generating money for the family. Carmine understood that better than any other boss in the family, in the show. So that's what I liked about Carmine. I think that sometimes the facial features in like LA Noire are like a little weird. Like they are a little weird at times. It's like sometimes when you're listening to when you're watching the characters, they're like, I didn't do it, and then they're like they're just going around like that, like that's their facial features. Like it's like they're just looking around, smiling. It's like weird. It's like yeah, but that's the thing. If I ever play LA Noire, I'm definitely gonna make fun of the faces because sometimes they're so ridiculous. No, what is that, Zach? I might play Elden Ring one day. Family, I told you, they're a glorified crew. You know, people made a comment about that on my Pegorino video. Like, one guy was like, John Gravelli always said that the Pegorinos were nothing but a glorified crew. Thank you, Glover. See if we can get another hand here, one. Oh, I didn't see that one, Zach. Just my first stream. Just wanted to say thanks for all the help on GTA 5 over the years, man. Truly appreciate it. No problem, Mike. Small hands is always Pegorino's problem. Oh. By the way, Pro, yes, you need Wi-Fi, and your PS5 must be on rest mode to use the PlayStation Portal, but no, you're not limited to your own house. If you have good Wi-Fi, you're set. Yeah, but that kind of controls the distance that you can get from your house, though, Blinded Eagle. Oh, crap. Look at these cards. 4, 5, 6 is a straight. Okay. I'm gonna destroy them. Both. What time do you typically go to bed? You don't want to know. It's like, when I've been going to bed lately, it's like, it's been so late, super late. If you want to really know the time I go to bed, I've been going to bed at 7, 8 a.m. I've been trying to fix my schedule really badly, but that's how long I've been staying up. How long do you sleep, Pro? I have been waking up at literally like 3 p.m. like the last few days, just like that time. I'm trying really badly to fix my sleeping. I don't want to go to bed. I don't want to go to bed that late. I want to go to bed more normal. Look at that. Okay, I have pretty much won most of my money back, and so because of that, I'm gonna stop playing now. So I've pretty much won all my most of my losses back.
I do love a return customer. Welcome.
Tips for getting a first job. I've had 2 remote jobs, but never one in person. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just no fast food. Any tips for beginners would be greatly appreciated. Honestly, Kyle, if I was you, if I was like, you know, trying to do something for work, what I would do is I would just do Uber Eats or DoorDash. That's probably what I would do, because it's not gonna make you, that much money, but it's something that you can do on your own time. You can pick your own hours, drive when you want to drive. I'm assuming you have a car. I don't know, but I'm just guessing. But that's basically the only downside, is you really need a car. But, it's not the best pay, I get that. But the plus side of that is that you can do the job whenever you want and you don't have a boss. That's, I hope that I answered your question. That's...
Oh, hello again. Never too soon, huh?
That's the one thing that I regret so much, is I should have quit retail years. I spent 6 years at retail. I should have just done DoorDash and Uber Eats instead of doing retail, because I would have probably made better money, and I would have been as stressed out by stupid annoying managers and supervisors. Yeah, in a way it can be, Mr. Fire. Did that answer your question though, Kyle? And Mr. Fire, you have a YouTube channel. Let me look you up right now. Oh, you are a GTA YouTuber also. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I found you. I see you're a GTA channel. Yeah, I think I did look you up, yeah. Well, if you get a driver's license, I would look into doing DoorDash and Uber Eats, but maybe if you've never driven before, maybe it's not a good idea to start it yet. Maybe only do DoorDash and Uber Eats when you get used to driving more. But... Oh, okay, Mario. Yep. No, Mr. K probably won't return in GTA 6. Oh, you kept trying to find me? Well, most of the time, rare username, most of the time it's very hard to find me because I play in private sessions on Red Dead. Maybe I'll start playing in public sessions again. But the reason I play it in private sessions is because when I played in public sessions, what happens is I would have people that would just join in and they would just blow me up, use explosive rounds, constantly follow me around the map and kill me. And it was just very frustrating. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't, like, enjoy the stream because I had people constantly following me and jumping me. And so that's why I stopped playing in, private, public lobbies on Red Dead. I play in private. There's a glitch to do a private session for people wondering. That's how I get into private sessions. What place is worse, Dillon Street or Toledo Bay? I might make a funny video one day, top 5 worst things that happen on Dillon Street in GTA 4. Because, bad things always just happen on Dillon Street. Something stupid always happens on Dillon Street. Bro, which is better, working the night shift or the day shift? Honestly speaking, I prefer working the night shift at jobs, typically, because I don't have to deal with that many people when I'm working a night shift. I'm just, left to myself. It's quiet. I don't have to deal with a lot of people. However, though, it depends on what you're doing. If it's working in retail, because unloading a huge heavy truck all night long is not fun. So, it really depends. If you had to ask me, would I rather be in the office at night, like, you know, doing a night, if I was like working in an office, I'd rather be at night, you know, just doing stuff. Me personally, that's just me. Than like, you know, being in the morning in the office. I'd rather do night personally. As for you know, if I'm lifting stuff, I'd rather do it in the daytime than do it at night. Let me see here. Grubby Gentleman, this is what, a TV show? Well, I'll look into this film then when I get the chance. Zach. I will announce it soon, Blinded Eagle. Maybe tonight, Brandon. I majored in law enforcement technology. That's what I majored in. Wish list for GTA 6. I hope that we have a good economy, and I hope we have a good a focus on the dark criminal underworld in the story in GTA 6. Favorite and least favorite pizza and why? My favorite pizza, I think, is Domino's. Least favorite pizza, I don't know. I don't think I really have one. I generally like all pizza. If you're asking me the type of pizza, least favorite pizza would probably be any pizza that has fruits on it. Any pizza that has fruits on it, I probably would not like it. I will really eat anything on a pizza. Anything. Just the only thing I will just not eat if there's like fruits on the pizza, I'll typically eat it. Okay, I might not like it. But if there is any kind of like really sweet stuff on a pizza, I won't eat it. Like if there are some people that put chocolate on pizza, I will never eat something like that. But that's even 10 times worse than the pineapple on pizza. Sushi pizza? That's the first time I'm hearing that. That sounds like something Gordon Ramsay would get really angry at. Oh, Domino's cheesy bread is great. Worst thing someone said to you in college? Well, it's not something that somebody said to me, but it's something that somebody didn't do, and that's help. There have been 2 times in college where I had to do group assignments, and no, actually 3 times in college where I had to do group assignments, and I had a group member who was not, you know, doing anything. That was the worst thing ever. When you're doing a group project in college and your group member is not doing crap, that's the worst, honestly. That sucks. I'm 29. But I will be going here, guys. Thank you guys for, yeah, I looked it up. It was like a, I looked it up before, Zach. It's from DreamWorks Animation. But I guess I'll probably be wrapping it up here, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you guys enjoyed this stream, do drop a like. And I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you guys for watching again. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.